Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are talking about my marker collection. Alcohol markers, water-based markers, all that. As you can see, most of mine are stored in this huge white thing here. I do have a few on the top from other brands, and then I also have this little foam holder, which I will try to get out of the way. But yeah, most of them are stored in here, and today we're just going to go over all the alcohol markers in my collection. There's actually a lot more than what you see up here, and hopefully you enjoy. Okay, so the first markers we are going to talk about today are my water-based ones. So I have the Tombow markers. I actually don't have too many, just these two slots here. And then I have some Lyra Aqua Brush Duo, which are basically exactly like the Tombow. Then I have a couple King Art ones that I had received in some art subscription boxes. Same with a few Zig Clean Color. So let's take a look. Here are the Tombows that I have so far. This chart you can actually get, it got cut off at the bottom, but I do have it. It's from Etsy, so I'll have to link it in the description below. But as you can see, it looks like I have a lot like in my little case here, but I really don't. Like, I'm missing a ton of colors. I'm just buying these like when I see a set go on sale. Like at one point they had this cute pumpkin spice set. It was like 5 markers for like $3. I'm in no rush to buy these because I don't use them as often. They are water-based, so they streak. They're good for putting down a base though on a page that is printed on the back, because then they won't bleed through. But yeah, I do have the Tombows. I have a few of the same color, especially when it came to the blues. But these are not refillable, so having an extra isn't actually a bad thing. And then with the Lyra, I don't have them actually swatched because I don't use them a ton. But as you can see, the Tombow is longer, has a little bit more ink in it as well. But both have a brush nib side, and both brush nibs are really good on both brands, I'll be honest. And then they both have like the fine liner side. So if you want to do like more of a fine liner work, then you can. But yeah, so I have the Tombow. Oops, I'm getting them all mixed up. And then I'll show you these King Art ones. So the King Art one, also water-based, great for basing, has a pretty large brush nib. They're not too shabby either. But the ones that I'm really impressed with are these Zig Clean Color ones, simply because of the way the brush performs. It's not like the Tombow. The Tombow is stiff. The brush nib on this is like a paintbrush. It's bendy. So you don't have two sides like the other ones have a fine tip, you know, and then the brush tip. You just have this brush tip. But they're really fun, and they feel a lot more like a paintbrush. And then of course you can always add water to them and on a palette and turn them into a watercolor, or add water while they're on your page before they dry, and they create some pretty fun effects. So those are my Tombow and little mixtures of everything else. Then I have these watercolor brush pens from Colorit. These are sent to me by the team at Colorit. Now I'm putting these in markers because often I use these like markers. I did do a video not too long ago showing you guys how I use these ones from Colorit, and I am going to create a review in a few more tutorials. Just like the Zig, they have that more of a consistency of a watercolor brush than a actual brush nib. So I wanted to show you. See, they just like a brush. it's as if you dipped your brush in paint. You can hold it. Now, if I were to take my Tombow, I can't do that. It's not bendy. it's got its limits. So these are really fun to play around with. Now this color set is pretty small, but again, you can mix your colors. They do have color names, and you can refill these, so they're refillable. You just twist this part off and the ink goes in here, which is a rarity. Most of these are one and done, including Tombow, which are very expensive considering you can't even refill them. I had always thought Tombows were refillable, and then when I found that out, I was like, wait, what? Then I have, oops, sorry, limited desk space, 50 watercolor brush pens. I use them as markers as well. These are from the Hippie Crafter, but they do the same thing as the Zig and the Color It. You can just, ta-da! Now they don't feel as well made as the Color It. I'll be pretty honest with you on that one. But the nib is pretty nice. It's just they don't put out, I guess, as much ink. They're not refillable. I'll show you a Zig too, just so you can see what I'm talking about. The brush nib on the Zig, I honestly think is my favorite, other than when it starts to dry out. But yeah, I mean, they're just awesome. All of these are so fun to play with. These have been sitting in my pile to review, as well as my Color It ones. I am way behind on product reviews. Oh my. All right, so let's switch over to the next set. Okay, next I have the Copic markers. I have all the Copics except the grays, and the only reason I didn't buy the grays is because I have so many from Ohuhu. Once the Ohuhus wear out, or dry out, or whatever, I will definitely be buying the Copic grays. Now, this chart here is from Card Monkey. However, on Copic's website, they have that chart, copicmarker.com. You can get this chart, and I've been slowly redoing the chart. I just, unfortunately, when I went to go do it, I found that some of my colors had dried out, so I was like, oh, I need to get refills. Now, these are alcohol markers, so they can, well, one, dry out on you, but two, they'll bleed. However, I love the nib of a Copic marker. There's just something about the nib on these things that is just so satisfying, and the color range, the blendability, really, like, they are expensive, incredibly expensive. I mean, curating this entire set took me a long time. I was buying them from various websites, waiting for sales. It was quite the headache, but I was able to finally get all the collections, and I do really love Copic. They are my favorite alcohol marker brand. I just grabbed a few as an example. I love the way they feel. Now, I have the Copic Sketch, which are these oval ones, but I do have a couple Chow. I'm gonna grab one of those for you. So these are the Copic Chow. These have a smaller reservoir, but exact same nib, great performance. You can get these a little cheaper, but they just don't hold as much ink. That said, you're gonna end up having to refill your Copics, but that's what's nice about these. So up front, yeah, you spend a lot of money on this hardy plastic shell, but it is made to last. You'll replace your nibs over time as they fray, but you can constantly refill these with the refills, which are right here. I have one. This one I actually need to refill. So this is the refill ink. Depending on if you're refilling a Chow or a Sketch, it just depends on how much ink it'll take, but you can get a few refills out of a single refill pen, and these go on sale on Michael's for like $5.99, and that's a killer deal. So I recommend waiting for these refills to go on sale. I have like a pile of Copics off to the side of my desk that are waiting for a sale so I can go buy their refills. But yeah, worth the investment. They're built to last. I highly recommend Copics. They are beginner friendly, just not budget friendly. That's the problem. However, you'll find the blendability and the way they've got their color names and the ranges and the way they've designed this just makes freaking sense. And you can do just about anything. I did buy on Etsy a color wheel similar to the Arteza wheel, which I'll show you here in a second, for my Copics, and I plan to fill that in instead of this chart here because I think the wheel will be more fun. And then that'll also help me see how many of these Copics. There's 358 colors in Copic sketch, I should say. But I'm going to see how many I need to get refills for because I've worn quite a few down from doing like kit and clouder little lessons or just playing around with them myself. Okay, next marker. Okay, like I mentioned, that Arteza wheel, that's this wheel here. So I have purchased the Arteza Everblend art markers, the brush version. They do have the bullet and chisel nib. I'm so sorry if I sniffle. I have allergies and sometimes I forget I'm on camera. So the brush and chisel nib, all of their colors have not converted to that. You'll see quite a few on my chart where there's a number and no dot. If it has a dot, that means it's converted. Now I did a big video on this. It took me forever, but the problem is how these were released is curated sets. And unfortunately, sets had overlap, and to get like all the ones that you were missing, you'd have to do, buy certain sets, do this. So I do have a full review on this that I will try to remember to link or put it as an end screen maybe, but it'll tell you how many times you're going to overlap or double up. At the time I'm filming this, they still have not come out with the full line of ink refills. So compared to a Copic, you can't really refill these, so they're still one and done. So at the moment, me having doubled up on some colors isn't a big deal. The nib is not bad. It's not like the Copic nib. I know they say it is, but it just doesn't feel that way to me. But it's still a nice nib. It's not going to fray as easily as, say, the Ohuhu ones. Would I recommend these off the bat? I do love their color system. Just like Copic, it makes sense. They kept it consistent. I would love to see all these other colors converted to brush out of their nib series. And I would like to see refills for all of them. And then that would make these very competitive with the Copics. But right now they kind of just flop. I mean, one, because they've shortchanged us. So many colors are missing from this wheel that they need to still convert. And then, yeah, you're missing the refills and all that. So they're a little overpriced considering that. And then, of course, the fact that you can only get them in those stupid little curated sets. Or last time I checked, they had open stock in packs of like 3 or something, which was like, well, I don't want to do that if you guys are going to come out with refills down the road, because then I'll have 3 of the stupid marker. Just one gal's opinion. All right, next we have Ohuhu. Ohuhu has been slowly trying to break out and compete with Copic. And so initially when Ohuhu came out, they were a cheap bullet and chisel nib. Now they released a monstrous set of the bullet and chisel nib, which I'll show you in a minute. But I was working my way through, because what happened with Ohuhu is they started releasing a brush nib, but they would release them in these smaller sets or curated sets, or then they would release these pastels, and things were starting to overlap. It was very confusing. The numbering system also started to change. They started to get more accurate with some of their colors. Like back in the day, some of their colors were just labeled as an R for red, but it was obviously not even close to a red violet or anything. It shouldn't be in the red category. So you had some like inconsistencies there, and they never fixed them. And I understand why, because obviously they've released them over the years. They don't want to change the numbers, but I say just get your ducks in a row, change the numbers, and get it right, because this is just confusing. So this is 344 brush colors. The nibs on these are nothing like the Copic nib. These do fray. However, they are reversible. I have a video on that. You can actually pull this out, turn it around, and you got a fresh nib. And then they do sell nib replacements, and they are starting to release the ink replacements or refills. Now, these are already pretty budget friendly just to buy the markers. If they are going to be refillable, that will definitely make them even more competitive. Of course, one thing you'll notice is if you look at this color range, you'll notice it's not quite as robust as Copic. It's missing some things here. And I am actually missing some colors because unfortunately to get some of these colors I'm missing, I have to buy the skin tone set. But yeah, it's just, there's not enough light colors. You have a ton of very bright, vibrant colors. So when it comes to blending families, Ohuhu kind of needs to figure out what they're doing here and kind of make a little bit better sense with their blending families. They need to fix their numbering system so that it works like Copics, to where you know which family it goes to. Same with Arteza. They have a great blending group and intensity, just the way Copic has theirs done, and it makes sense. Ohuhu needs to fix theirs and do that. Otherwise, you're like, what the heck is going on here? Because as you can see, these are just in numerical order, but it's all over the place. And I had one day thought of sitting down and making blending families started, and then I was like, yeah, no, I don't have time for this. So it's just, they're a little wacky, but very budget friendly. This is great if you're new to alcohol markers. You are going to be able to blend these. They blend nicely. The nib, like I said, is not as great as the Copic. The ink doesn't feel like it blends as well as the Copic. I know I've heard people say alcohol ink is alcohol ink. That's not necessarily true. Every company has their own formula as to what's going in here. So you got to keep that in mind, but as well as their dyes and how they create their colors. So the Ohuhus I do love. I typically do color alongs on my channel with the Ohuhus just because I know more people will have those than Copic. Although, gosh, I would love to just break out all my Copics. All right, on to the next. All right, next we have the tri-blends. Now, I know I have a chart that combined them all. I need to get my markers organized. I spent so much time organizing my pencils lately that my markers got neglected. Now, the tri-blends are semi-gimmicky. However, I actually really, really like them. I like their nibs, and they come in this ridiculously long marker. But essentially, this is meant to blend. You have your own blend right here. A dark, medium, and light. So here you go. See how they work. Small reservoir, so they do run out of ink. You can purchase these open stock. And technically, these colors, you can buy the refills because the other Spectrum Noir markers, the Spectrum Noir illustrators, do have refills. And those, you can just take the refills and refill these. You're not supposed to, but you can. These are super beginner friendly, and I love it because as you can see, you'll pull out the blue turquoise blend, and look, you have a blend right there. You've got a blend here. You don't have to do the guesswork. It just blends beautifully. They're actually not that overpriced considering what they're providing. And I have not run out of ink, and I've used these quite a bit. I do have the 48 count set now. I bought both 24 count sets. I just can't find my chart. And then I did end up with a few extras from art boxes and whatnot, but I actually really recommend the tri-blends. I think they're a great marker. I actually hope they expand the line and add more, if you want me to be completely honest, because gosh, it's like these are great for on the go, because if I wanted to take 48 Copics, that's a huge thing of markers. When I want to take my Spectrum Noir tri-blends, let me zoom out and show you. This is literally all my 48 markers right here in this little thing. I could just pack up 24 of these and be on the go. And yeah, it's super easy to take these with you. I could just take these 24 and have a full set of markers. Okay, I do have the Spectrum Noir Illustrator markers. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I don't use them. I have so many other markers. And the problem is these ones here, so they come in these cool little trays that stack on top of one another. Of course, they come loose all the time. So they do have a brush nib and a bullet nib. That part I really do actually kind of dig. Oh, there we go. And the brush nib is quite nice. It's soft, it's bendy, not quite, doesn't feel quite like the Copic, but it's coming along, I would say. However, I honestly just don't use these much because I have so many other markers. But these are pretty expensive. These two sets here came in the Jazza box, which is the only reason I had them in the first place. These other ones came in an art subscription box. So I have not actually purchased them outright myself. They've just come from subscriptions or specialty boxes pretty much. But they're not too bad. I need to use them more. Okay, next I have the Colorit art markers. So these are bullet and chisel nib. They come in this cool little box. And I can't remember how it's supposed to sit. It's supposed to sit like that or something? I don't know. Match the butterflies. Oh, aha, there we go. Sits like that on your desk. And then you have this chart and your markers. This chart is highly inaccurate. I keep meaning to copy, or not copy, but glue the actual chart here so that I can have it. But these are the markers. Pretty good color range. The marker themselves is not bad. It's just a bullet nib. And I don't use the bullet nib very often, so these only get used when I'm coloring mandalas, more or less. But still a good marker. I hope they release a, a bullet nib one soon. Or not bullet, brush. Okay, these are the Blick Studio brush markers. I've done a full review on my site. Huge box. This thing is a beast. 144 colors. Actually, really nicely made. I mean, you got a color chart up here. My swatch chart is kept with them. So, oh, that's right. It was one of my gripes. It's 142 colors. You get 2 colorless blenders. So, here's my chart of colors. They're actually not too bad. The colors are quite pretty. And here's the markers. Oh, I left some out because I was lazy. So, the order they come in, at first, a lot of people were like, oh, this is kind of wacky. Supposedly, they're supposed to come in an order that is a blending family. Let me see if I can find an example. I don't necessarily think that's true, though, because this is lemon here. So lemon, straw yellow, and silk. Not really something I would blend. So it was kind of weird packaging. That said, these are refillable. They have replacement nibs. They're basically everything like Copic, and the nib is actually quite close to the Copic. So they're not a shabby marker at all. They don't get a lot of love from me, and they need to, but I'm usually caught up using either my Ohuhus or my Copics, and these just kind of get, or my tri-blends. So these don't get used as often as they probably should. Speaking of Ohuhu, this is that monster set. I don't remember how many colors are in this thing. Does it say on here? 320. So this is the bullet and chisel nib one. They came with these cards. I honestly just use these for mandalas. So I don't really use them for anything else because it's got the bullet nib. I don't like coloring with a bullet nib. And then the chisel. Never use a chisel. So, predominantly used with mandalas or backgrounds and Fineliners books. That's about it. I might use them as a base coat for like my, you know, if I'm going to do create space paper, but you guys know how little I use create space paper. So yeah, this is the monster set. Honestly, I use it very infrequently. Ooh, I need to take that colorless out. I use those for ink tints activating. But it is a good set overall. However, if you're not going to use a bullet nib, you're not going to have much of a use for this. Okay, then I have the Ohuhu water-based dual tip markers. They're basically exactly like Tombos. They even have like replacement nibs. They're not refillable though. And these are the colors. They're not too shabby, but they're also not like super impressive. But yeah, they're water-based. They will streak. That's why I don't really rush to buy the Tombos, because I still have all these to go through. Also, brush nib. And then you have your fine liner nib. So these are great for mandalas and base coats, or the same thing, you can add water to them and make them move. So they're not bad, but the colors are kind of weird. Very highlighter-ish. Okay, speaking of fine liners, I'm including these as well because they're technically a marker. This is the Arteza 72 Ink Onic pens. I used to use these a lot, but then I kind of just, well, lost interest, I guess. I do have swatches of them though. Here we go. Oh, that's the 48 count set. Is that what this one is? Nope. I must have upgraded and never re-swatched them. When these first came out a long time ago, they didn't have numbers, so they were really hard to be like, what is this? And then they added the number code at least. But it's just a single-sided fine liner, water-based. I typically use these for mandalas, or I did, although I typically now use gel pens and Sharpies. I need to use these more though, because they aren't awful. It's just I keep forgetting I own them. All right, this case is what I like to call my mandala case, because I have all my glitter gel pens, and then we get into my Sharpies. So I have a variety of Sharpies. I shouldn't even say Sharpies, because not all of them are actual Sharpies. I have some Bic, including the fine point Bics. I know you would think it wasn't because of how fat this thing is. I also have some Amazon permanent markers. These things bleed like crazy. Yeah. And then I do have like the fine point Sharpie, which is still pretty beastly. And then I have the ultra fine point Sharpies. And I have a whole variety of colors. I just buy the Sharpie packs when they're on sale. I'm never going to buy the Amazon ones again. Like I said, they bleed way too bad. I had started to make it easier taping swatches to them, but then I got lazy. I basically just pick a palette, go through here, quick swatch some of these, see which one matches, and that's the marker I end up using. As you can see, I got every color here. I've got greens, metallic ones that don't really show up as metallic, browns, blues, more blues, purples, purple pinks. And like I said, I just buy them when Sharpie sets are on sale. They have super cute Sharpie sets that you can collect if you want to. I did create a chart and number my pens, so that's why there's some numbers on here, just to make it a little easier. But yeah, it's kind of a haphazard little system I have. But I keep this down in my room, so when I'm feeling like doing a mandala, I'll pick out a glitter gel pen that goes with it, and then typically a Sharpie, because I like to fill it in so I don't waste all my glitter ink. I do have a lot of Sharpies though, but yeah, that's all I use Sharpies and Bics for, is mandalas only. No base coating, no coloring, just mandalas. And that is my marker collection. Obviously not as big as my pencil collection, but still a lot bigger than it needs to be. In fact, I do need to de-stash some of these markers and fine liners and stuff that I don't use anymore. I'll probably just start, maybe ship them to some friends or offer them on my Discord. So I suggest going to my Discord, and I might just offer them there. It'll most likely be things like my Arteza Ink Onic that I never use, or I do need to sell my set of Blick markers. So if you're interested, let me know. I wish I could give those away for free, but those were not cheap. And those are definitely something I'll have to sell to at least sort of compensate myself for the amount of money I spent on those. But yeah, I do want to niche down. And honestly, when it comes to alcohol markers, I want to keep my Ohuhu, my Arteza Everblend, and my Copics. My Blick, my Colorits, my Spectrum Noir Illustrator, and all those I plan to, just get rid of somehow, either by selling or giving away, just depending on how much each one costs me. And then, yeah, definitely I need to use my water-based ones more. I think some I'll be giving away as well. And then I do have reviews coming on these watercolor ones very soon, so keep an eye out for that. Those ones and the Colorit ones. But yeah, that is my marker collection as of 2023. If I had to pick one to keep only, Copic. Sorry. If you asked me to rank them top 3, it would be Copic, Ohuhu, and Arteza. And of course, like I said, I typically only end up using the Copic and Ohuhu. So I would use Copic more in color alongs. I just don't know how many of you own the Copics. If more of you ended up owning them, I would do more Copic color alongs because they are my favorite. However, I tend to do Ohuhu because I know most people have at least some of the Ohuhus. They may not have 344, which they did release the brush set, by the way. It's quite a hit to the wallet, but if you compared it to Copic, then you're not even close to that hit. A complete set of Copics can easily run over $1,000. So just keep that in mind whenever you look at Ohuhu prices, and then you're like, never mind, this is cheap. So yeah, thanks for hanging out with me for Marker Collection 2023. I've actually never done a marker collection video, I don't think. So the first one, and like I said, keep an eye out for how I plan to destash some of these. And until next time, take care. Bye now.